What it is? How's it going, everybody? Today we're going to be talking about Don't Worry, Darling, the newest weird sci-fi-esque, thriller-esque movie. Yeah, that's what we're going to go with. Or like that, it's that type of film. It's got all types of drama and stuff. We're going to talk about everything. We're going to talk about being back in the 50s, cooking, throwing food on the floor. It's going to be a whole thing. So sit back, relax, grab a snack, grab a beverage, and listen on in to the first ones to die.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the First Ones to Die podcast. My name is Jonathan, and I am joined by my very gracious, wonderful co-hosts, Alex and Jerome. Alex, you look like you got something to say. So, Alex, how are you doing?
Just giggly. That's don't know why. I'm good. I think I'm just a little tired. I'm fine. How are you guys? How are you doing, Jerome?
Good and tired.
Our tiredness comes off in very different ways. But what about you, Jonathan? Are you tired as well?
I am. Well, I guess not today because I've had a couple days of rest earlier this week. You might have seen it on social media, but Lil Nas, he got his wax figure. Got to be a part of that launch.
Is the wax figure also look like he got dipped in a vat of canola oil as well? Because I don't know what it is, Lil Nas X, but he always be shining. He always be glistening everywhere he goes.
He takes good care of his skin. That's like,
I don't think it's take care of his skin. I think he literally just be lathering up with baby oil everywhere he goes. Like no black man be that shiny all the time.
He was not shiny in person. Neither was his wax figure, but he was very tall. Like I did not expect him to be, and his wax figure is very tall.
How tall is little?
He's taller than me. Like even when but he was wearing very high tall shoes.
But say, was he actually taller? Or was he wearing like boots?
Oh, he's 6'2". He's 6'2".
Okay, so maybe the same height as me, but still, like with the shoes, it's very tall.
Oh, I just ordered these awesome boots, and I'm super excited because they're actually going to give me height. So I'm actually going to be like average height. I'm going to be able to see the tops of things.
Won't have to. Do you have a step ladder like in your apartment?
I do.
Yes. Maybe you won't need that with the new boots. You could, or maybe you'll just have to use one step.
That'd be cool. I also have to use going over to my sister's house is fun because Yasi, her wife, is about 5'11", I think, or 5'10". She puts things up high, and then I'll ask my sister, I'm like, why does she do that? She's like, because she doesn't realize how short we are. So here we are trying to get things with the freaking like clackers. What are they called? The pinchers.
Oh,
the tongs.
Oh my. Yeah. That's
I worked in a kitchen too. Yeah, and I worked in a kitchen once. But anyway, so you went to New York for that, right?
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was fun. It was cool to see, and everybody liked the wax figure, like on social media and stuff. Like no one could tell who was Lil Nas and which one was the wax figure.
Yeah, I saw it. It's super impressive. The more I learn, the more you tell me about these wax figures, the more I get impressed. I was like, and then I'm like, yeah, they disturbingly look like these actors and actresses and artists.
It's a process. I also yesterday, along with the movie that we're about to talk about, I saw it's not The Barbarian. It's just Barbarian. I saw Barbarian.
Did you like it? Was it worth it? I'm debating.
I think so. I won't say anything about it because it's just crazy. You have to just watch it for yourself. But I thoroughly.
I've only gotten one hint as to what's going on, and even then, it's so vague that I was like, I don't know what that means. If anything, that just gives me more questions than answers.
I'm more confused when I entered.
I had no. Have you seen the trailer? I didn't watch the trailer.
Yeah, I've seen, but the trailer doesn't give away anything either. The trailer is literally just like you just see darkness. You see her open that chamber in the side of the house, and then it's just people in the darkness and screams. That's it. You don't get much more than that. So the trailer is extremely vague as to like what's going on. It's just like, hey, come on over in September. It's gonna be real scary. Barbarian. See you today.
Yes. I hadn't, because I had just heard from people that it was good and that like it's crazy. It gets crazy. So that's all. I was going into it expecting it. I thought it was going to be some sort of like, I thought there was going to be some like medieval, because it's called Barbarian. You would think like it's like a medieval thing, but it's not. It's set in modern day. So
I think I read a description where they were just like, oh, a woman stays at like this rental house, or she rents a house.
It's like an Airbnb.
Yeah. And despite her better judgment, she stays. And I was talking to somebody I was working with about this movie. I was like, I don't know. I feel like if it comes to a point where it's like, after the better judgment, like you decide to stay, it's kind of your own fault that you're now murdered. All right, you got the warning signs. You saw the creepy message written on the wall. You heard the weird like screaming. Like, leave. Just go. It's okay. It's okay.
I'm gonna see this through. I want to know what happens.
Yes, I recommend it. It was a good time. Although the people who I was watching it in the theater with were kind of annoying. Like they were laughing at times that like clearly you weren't supposed to laugh at. They were also whispering more than I would have liked.
Oh no.
Yeah, so thankfully there were a few rows back for me, but still, like
this is why I just like going to watch horror films a lot of times now alone, because I'm really big into horror films, as I said before, and it just makes it easier for me to get more into the film. And also, I like because like people in general just talk to make themselves feel better when it's a scary movie too. They're like, oh, this way it's not real because I'm in this conversation or something, and it's just like, no, I just want to focus. I want to get into it. I want to be scared.
Speaking of something that may or may not have been scary, especially the press. The press was definitely scary for this movie. Don't Worry, Darling. That is the movie that we are going to be talking about today. Was just released this weekend. It's about a 1950s housewife living with her husband in a utopian experimental community. She begins to worry that his glamorous company could be hiding disturbing secrets. It is directed by Olivia Wilde, stars Florence Pugh, Harry Styles, Chris Pine, Olivia Wilde, Kiki Lane, Gemma Chan, Nick Kroll, Sydney Chandler, and many more people. Basically, if this is your first time listening to one of our reviews, first we go over our non-spoiler thoughts. So we mention, if we liked the movie, if we didn't like it, our overall thoughts. Then we'll warn you before we go into spoilers, and we'll dive deep into everything about this movie. So, does anyone want to go first? Who wants to go first with their general thoughts on this movie?
You're saying it like you want to go first, but you don't want to go first.
Okay, I'll go first. I guess I'll go first. So obviously, there was a lot of press, which we'll get into all of the stuff behind this movie, because certainly it was a movie in and of itself. But going into this movie, I didn't really know what to expect. From I guess the trailer, which I had seen bits and pieces of, this would probably be the type of movie that I would be gravitated towards. Kind of this like psychological thriller, kind of like twist and turn, like this society is not what you think it is type of movie. Execution wise, it was fine. I didn't think it was bad. I also wasn't fully, there was something for me that was missing to get me to be fully invested in the movie. I don't know whether it was how it ended or how we got to the end, but there was something for me that was missing. people are review bombing this movie like crazy to hell and back. And I don't think it's as bad as the reviews, if you look up on Google, state. Like it's a 1 out of 10 on IMDb when we last looked at it.
Dang.
Yes. Last week when we looked at it, it was like a 1 out of 10 and like a 30-something% on Rotten Tomatoes.
It's at a 6.2 out of 10 now.
Okay, that's a lot better. I think that's pretty accurate to how the movie was for me. Yeah. But I had a fine time. I wasn't offended at the movie, but I wasn't like fully invested either.
You sounded more excited to tell us about the Barbarian than you were about this.
Honestly, I was. And I watched Barbarian first and watched this second. So if only I had.
Did you just call it The Barbarian? You are the queen of hating when people add "the" to a title.
I literally said, if you were listening to me, I said I made that same mistake at the beginning when I was first introducing the movie, so it's ingrained in my head.
No, not you, Jonathan. I'm talking about Alex.
Oh.
He's trying to call me out because I said The Barbarian.
I would never call you a queen, Jonathan. I would insult you like that.
Ain't nothing wrong with being a queen.
Hey,
can be as he please, yeah.
I just feel like I don't think Jonathan would appreciate being called a queen, like him personally. I don't like if you're a queen of something, good for you.
Clearly it did not matter. He was ready to stand his ground about that mistake and be like, no, I corrected it. Wait a minute, I already took care of that response.
Queen Jonathan has spoken.
As you should. No, I know, I do that. I do add "the" to things too, but I don't like it when they just add "the" and then call it a whole separate movie. That is not the same
like
thing.
The Suicide Squad. Yeah.
No, that's bullshit. The Batman. No.
It is a separate movie.
It is bullshit. Is what it is.
The other movie.
Coming in 2025, The Barbarian.
The Barbarian.
And they would do that. It was Barbarian, now it's The Barbarian. We're gonna have Don't Worry, Darling, The Don't Worry, Darling.
There's Mean Girls, then The Mean Girls.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Suddenly there's emphasis on stupid
there's
bullshit.
Inception, then there's The Inception.
Jerome, did you like this movie or not? Getting off track.
I thought this movie was all right. I went to see it with on a date, and me and her both were like, we're so like immediately after the movie was over, we had so many questions. We just sat in the theater for like a solid like 5 minutes just asking questions off of just this ending alone, because we were just like, this movie left, and I feel like it left us lacking. Like it definitely left me lacking. I feel like there's so much more meat on the bones that this movie had, that they just were like, just before I could finish eating, they just took it away from me. They're just like, nah, you done, big fella. Go ahead and let me get that. But I wasn't done yet. Now I'm done. Like, the restaurant closing right now. Let's go. And so there's so many aspects of this movie that I feel like, story-wise, I feel like they just left on the cutting room floor, or just were never gonna elaborate on, especially when it comes to the visual, because the visual of this movie is beautiful. It's really gorgeous, really interesting. It definitely has its own style. I think Olivia Wilde is coming into her own as far as a director, as far as finding what her movies look and feel like, as far as tone and that sort of stuff. And so that stuff was cool. I think it was a beautiful looking movie. Acting wise, I think Florence Pugh is the one who's like definitely doing the most, and she's holding up this movie. But I think everybody else ranges from like people who are really good or doing a pretty decent job to people who are just like, yeah, you're doing all right, but I feel like your role could have been played by anybody else and it would be the exact same. And I don't blame the actors for that. I think it's a direction, because there's certain characters in here who you just forget exist because they just are not in the movie anymore, until they need to be. And it's Nick Kroll is especially the one that I was like, I feel like this character was meant to do more, and we don't get to
didn't
see
even
a
look
lot
like
of
Nick
him.
Kroll half the time in the film. It's really weird. Him clean shaven changes his face sometimes.
You didn't recognize John Boyega for a
Hey,
long time in The Woman King either. He looked exactly the same.
I was not always looking at John Boyega. I was not always looking at John Boyega's face, and I admitted to it. I hold my ground to that too.
But Nick Kroll this time he was fully clothed.
Look, I don't want to be looking anywhere at Nick Kroll. I'm not looking anywhere but Nick Kroll's face. Respectfully, I'm not looking at anywhere else but Nick Kroll's face. I'm saying because he shaved, he looked so much younger.
Oh, okay.
And it was kind of weird for me sometimes. He was like, his beard gives him much age.
So yeah, overall, I think the movie is okay. It has some interesting ideas for sure. And I was invested in the mystery, and I think the twist is cool, but it's like it feels like the movie was like, and here's the twist. And I was like, okay, cool. So tell me more about the twist. Now the movie's over. What? Yeah. I feel like we just got acclimated to, like, you just flipped the script and then you literally then just turned me around and was like, all right, now leave. Like, you know what I mean? So that's kind of how I left the movie. And I feel like that third act, it just feels like the movie is rushing itself in the third act to finish. But I'm like, nah, it feels like you've got more story to tell. And I'm kind of waiting for you to do that. So that's how so much as I could say without spoiling anything. But like, you know, that being said, I didn't hate my time watching this movie. And I still think it's like a decent film. I don't think it deserves to be like torn apart. Like, you know what I mean?
I feel like Benedict Cumberbatch would have done really well in this film. Like his facial features and everything. He could have been in this film. That's an actor that they could have swapped out for another one, and nobody would have noticed.
They could have swapped him for Chris Pine.
That's
Chris Pine. He's a nice man, attractive dude. I don't feel like he was really doing much in this movie.
And I think that's the only person Benedict Cumberbatch could have swapped out for.
Yeah, I think so.
And they probably could have given him another scene too. Because I feel like Chris Pine was barely in this.
Same thing with Gemma Chan. I was like, why is Gemma Chan here? Why are we wasting this woman's time with this role?
Alex, what are
I mainly
thoughts?
enjoyed it for Chris Pine. I thought the movie was very generic. There was not really a surprise or anything. I knew what it was. It's basic. I kept thinking, the one that I had majorly was, this should have been what the Stepford Housewives remake basically was.
That's a lot of people have been comparing this movie to.
Instead of that weird ass, like, their half robot thing going on with the Nicole Kidman's one. No, this should have been the Stepford Wife remake with the modern technology fix in it. And yeah, it was, to me, it was a very okay movie. There was nothing spectacular about it. I love Chris Pine. That's who I was mainly watching. Anytime he was on screen, that was my focus. And I was looking everywhere. And like I didn't
pause after that.
She's still thinking about Chris Pine now. She's just like, mm-hmm.
Look, that scene where him and like that scene with him and Florence when I talked to other people about it.
What about Harry Styles?
He's a hardcore Harry Styles.
Ooh, I
don't think
Alex, you gonna blow up our
Alex
comments.
just be incurring the wrath of different fandoms every time we do this podcast. You know the Harry Styles stands are gonna come for you. You just what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah. I'm real scared of the 12-year-olds that are gonna come for me.
No, they're adults now. They're adults now, all right?
They were in college.
They were listening to Harry Styles when he was in One Direction, and now they're like
they're in college now. Great. I can offer them a free meal for one night, and they'll be fine.
That's true. They might not pick a fight with you because if they get hurt, they can't afford to fix it because they don't have health insurance.
What are they gonna say, dude?
We're not just going after Harry, we're going after them too. Yeah. Harry Styles fans, I love Harry Styles. His new album is great.
Whatever. Tell me what. I'll schedule a day off of work and they can take a day off of exams and then we can talk and meet.
Watermelon sugar.
His new album, for a second, for real, Harry Styles' new album slaps. It's very driving music, like especially in California, driving down the freeway. Anyway, don't worry, darling. So spoilers. We're going into this is all over the place already. Just like the press,
just like this movie.
Let's
Hey!
let's quickly go into the all of the drama behind the scenes of this movie. First of all, we have the Shia LaBeouf stuff, where he maybe got fired, he maybe quit. We don't know.
I think he probably got fired. But to be honest, after watching the movie now, I'm like, I don't know where he would have fit anyway.
Well, apparently, and I was just reading, apparently Olivia Wilde was going to play Florence Pugh's character. And so I'm assuming, because they were going to be older, and I'm assuming Shia LaBeouf was going to play Harry Styles' character, because Harry Styles was added after Florence Pugh was added in the role, because they wanted to have a younger couple. So I'm assuming Harry Styles wasn't going to be a part of the movie, and it was going to be Shia LaBeouf and Olivia Wilde playing the husband and wife.
Gotcha.
I could see that. I don't know. I feel like maybe an older couple would have been better in these scenes than, like, don't get me wrong, Florence Pugh, she really did put everything she had into this film. Like, she was amazing. There was not a bad scene with her acting. She clearly was doing her best. But I think an older couple almost might have felt a little bit better, because a lot of younger couples now, this is also about, like, are we in spoiler territory? Can I?
Yeah, we are.
Okay. This is also about, like, oh, the feel of the whole, the man, I'm not doing enough, she's doing more, blah, blah, blah type of deal. That's affecting younger couples less and less, because we're all in an economical crisis. Gender roles are starting to take a back seat because we just need money to survive.
I mean, I don't know, because I feel like there is, just knowing the amount of men I've known, there is an air, though, of, depending at least where you were raised, especially, of, like, for some younger men who feel like, who aren't, like, very, I guess how you say, like, manly is the best way to describe it, but they want to be that provider. They want to be that, like, very, like, like the 1950s classic idealism of it, of, like, the man takes care of the house, he provides, he is, like, the one taking care of everything, and the wife is the one who stays at home and cooks the meals, and she doesn't have to work because the man's got it covered. But there's something, like, and so I'm like, there are some young men that do still think that way because that's what they've been taught, or maybe that's what they've seen and that's what they want. Either way, so I think it could still apply with a younger couple, but I do see what you mean.
I agree. And there, I interacted with many of those people, sadly. But it's just the economic crisis that we are in a recession. This is no time to daydream about stuff anymore. We need actual income.
And also Florence Pugh, even though in this version of the movie it's a younger couple, I feel like Florence Pugh, even though I think in real life she's only in, like, her mid-20s, she has a very mature, like, energy about her.
Because I always feel like throughout this movie, I was like, Harry Styles feels like he's younger than her. Even though they're supposed to be close to the same age. But it's because he has a baby face. Like, when he doesn't have any facial hair, he looks like a kid. He still looks like he's a teenager, or at least in his, like, early 20s. Whereas Florence Pugh, even though she's in her 20s, looks like she's in her 30s, because she just has a mature look to her, especially with makeup on.
And I feel like she acts. She's a very mature, like,
she has a stance and confidence to her.
Absolutely.
Where he did look the youngest in the whole film. He did look like he looked out of place in a lot of things.
Although I'll tell you this, though, Harry Styles, they did him up to make him look as ugly as possible, though. When you find out the twist where he's in the real life, in the real world, and he got that, like, stash and, like, that ratty hair, and the
Razor
like
burn
unkempt beard. Yeah, the razor burns on his face. And I was just like, man, look here.
or
Like they
razor
done
bumps.
did Harry Styles wrong. This is ruining all the girls' fantasy right now. If anyone who's attracted to Harry Styles, they're like, I want to see him like this. Go back. Go back to the way he looked before.
Now with the second part of the controversy, apparently Olivia Wilde and Florence Pugh did not get along on set. There were supposedly screaming matches, and that contributes to supposedly why Florence Pugh was not involved in the press to promote the movie. What do y'all think of that?
Yeah, I've heard that one. I don't know. I mean, it happens. Like sometimes you get on set with people you just don't vibe with. The biggest one I could think of is like Charlize Theron and Tom Hardy. They say they did not get along at all on the set of Mad Max Fury Road, which I think the other part of that was also they were in the heat. So they were just so they were probably already mad as hell.
This
and then
is
it's like you're trying to
your director
and
and your main actress, your main actress not getting along whatsoever. And it showing so much that people are taking notice that she's not even willing to do press. That's pretty bad.
Well, here's the thing.
Press for her movie.
Well, the thing is, we don't know what they were feuding about though. Because that's the other thing too. Was it a director issue or was it? Because I'm wondering because I know Olivia Wilde's first movie was Booksmart, and
which I watched on the plane the first time.
But she was in that film. She's in this one, so I'm wondering if maybe it was just maybe her focus was just separated because she's focusing on being the actress Olivia Wilde and being the director, and that's not always an easy thing to do. I know I've tried to do it. It's hard.
So it sounds to me like you're on
hats.
Florence Pugh's side. You're Team Pugh.
It's more like I'm just like I need more information because like Florence Pugh didn't do the press.
Team Pugh just because of that Venice outfit, the Venice premiere outfit. That outfit
she did look good. That
like
was a good
she
outfit.
just like everybody laid out. Yeah, no, I'd just be on her. I don't care who's wrong or right. I'm on that side because of that dress.
But also, I did not know she was English.
Who Florence?
I thought she was American.
I didn't know she was English.
I know.
Yeah,
we all learned something today.
But
I feel like all of her main roles have been American.
Well, it's like that's where the money is. I don't know. I just feel like it's like I need more information to make a higher detection on that because that's all skepticism based off of a few words from other people and none from Florence Pugh or Olivia Wilde, the people involved. So
she did post on her Instagram, I think yesterday or today, saying like it was so great to be a part of this movie, and people noted that she posted a picture of her and Olivia Wilde. So hopefully that dispels some of the
it probably didn't. There's like time. Even friends who I mentioned, a friend of ours earlier who doesn't care about this got involved and read everything because it was like nonsense. Because it was like, yeah, there's a lot to it. I mean, clearly, whether you want to hear more one side or the other, this was not a happy set to work on. And you can also feel it when the actors perform on camera too, because a lot of them seemed like that's yeah. There was a scene where Harry Styles and Chris Pine, where Harry Styles' character gets a promotion and they're on stage in this beautiful big event. The distance between them two as he's like holding his arm up like in that pose is like, yeah, you can clearly tell that's as close as they are willing to get to each other. This is not a celebration moment. They're like, hey, yeah, still stay quite far from me. So it's presented on camera. So the fact that not knowing what the real controversy is or what happened, it was enough that it has bled onto the screen, and you can clearly tell with the stifling acting the actors did present. And that is something that you you shouldn't let affect your movie and then try to be like, oh no, everything was great. No, we can clearly see with the actors what's going on screen. And there were a lot of scenes like that you were right. It felt like they weren't giving their all. They weren't giving fully into the scene. The part even with Olivia Wilde character's part where she's um talking about right before she helps Florence's character escape, she's talking about like, oh yeah, I know everything's real. I'm doing it for my kids. I want to be with my kids. Right before the big twist happens, she still doesn't feel as emotional or like almost almost a manic enough for the situation that's occurring. So even her herself has like pulled back on its own character. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think this movie did have a lot of potential, at least in the acting, because it was visually beautiful. The way the symmetry, everything of this film was done, very beautiful. I will give credit to that. Um, but it, the movie, I think the concept was kind of generic and has been used many times. This, wants the perfect life. Oh, this is the way to do it. But now somebody's either getting kidnapped, there's some lie, or oh no, you've either drugged me, put me in a simulation, or I'm trapped in like a hollow dome.
The simulation did throw me for a little. I did not expect that. I thought it was going to. I thought they were like in just an alternate history where it was the 1950s, but then something
Oh really?
happened.
The moment
So
they said they were out in the desert, I was like, oh, this is just some like city out in the desert. They're gonna
right.
escape and like.
I mean, so I didn't think it was a simulation. Yeah, I didn't think it was a simulation. I didn't think it was a simulation, but I thought it was some sort of like they got their memory wiped and they're forced to be there. I didn't think it was an actual like they're not actually there, but I knew that it wasn't. I knew that they were not in the time period that they were actually in.
Right.
Especially when.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, especially when you hear psychological thriller that takes place in the 1950s, I feel like my mind goes straight to, oh, this isn't what it seems like.
Well, yeah, because anytime somebody tries to mess with your mind, for some reason they go back to the 1950s. And like, I get it. That's superior. Men were men, women were women, blah blah blah.
I thought it was,
but no, I can't stand if don't like the technology wise was fucking awful back in the 1950s with the tiny ass TVs, black and white. All right, do not trap me in this alternate reality with shitty technology. Not after everything I've
barely watch TV now. You watch everything on the internet.
I watch everything on my TV. This TV is constantly going. I have grown an attachment to that's probably not healthy, but that's besides my issues. I need to get a new one, but I'm not willing to replace it just yet.
And also, it's not about the like you're thinking in modern senses, all right? In the 1950s, people actually went out and did things. They didn't just stay at home and watch TV. They could if they wanted to. I went out
last night with a friend. Sure, we went to a craft store, but that's besides the point. I went out. I conversed. I got yarn.
What kind of craft store did you go to that's open late?
At night. I got yellow yarn. Blanket for Gibson I'm making. But that's why, well, like for the people who are like actually this is a stipulation, actually know this is reality, how are you dealing with like this de-escalation in technology availability?
Because they're not worried about the technology. Also, the men leave, so they don't have to worry about it.
Do they? That was actually never explained. Do they just jump out of the simulation?
It's implied that like when they're supposedly going to work, like all the men are leaving the simulation to work to pay for the simulation to continue while their wives stay, I guess, in like locked in to the simulation.
So y'all just couldn't get a normal real job and pay for real stuff. But this is easy. This is easier. Getting a job to pay for a fake simulation, much less stressful.
Well, I think it's like because the idea of like you're not paying for like an easier life. You're paying for the lifestyle of the idea of, especially with Harry Styles' character, where it's he in his mind, because I think that was an interesting thing that this movie tried to play with. I just think they didn't have enough time to flesh it out a little bit more. The idea of like the tragedy of Harry Styles' character, because I don't think I don't think his reasoning comes from a sexist place. I think it comes from a confused place, because in his mind, it's like my girlfriend, or because I don't think they're married either, like in real life. Um, but it's like my partner works all the time, like, and I work too, but to pay for the
No, he
bills,
was
she works.
unemployed.
Was he
He was,
unemployed?
he
Okay.
was unemployed in
So
real life.
she works all the time to take care of me, to take care of this place, and she's miserable. She never has time for me. She never has time for herself. She only ever has time to sleep, to go back to work the next day. I feel powerless that I can't do anything because I don't have a job. I don't have the means to like take care of us the same way she can. So like through this program, he does, like, he's like, you get to finally just enjoy your life, just stay, like, have a nice life. Your husband comes home and loves on you, and stuff like that. You have time for yourself
So
and just get to
instead
hang
of
out with the
just
girls.
trying to find like a job to make life easier, in reality, a man, by me, it probably Chris Pine, which I probably would give in a little bit too.
About to say, you act
Comes
like if
up in
Chris
a
Pine didn't put you in that simulation, you wouldn't go in a heartbeat.
That's not what we're talking about. I'm fine.
He would just be like, you just already be in the bed, like, go ahead, put him on my eyelids, I'm already ready.
Look, Chris Pine is a glorious man.
Alex
You can
would be
fill
putting
out
the
a
handcuffs
license.
on herself. He'd be like, I didn't say you had to do that.
I want to say so many jokes, but I don't. But my mom also listens to this podcast, so I won't. I will, however, text Lauren later about that comment. But like, that's still such a weird concept. I get it. It's like it's supposed to be a psychological thriller. Oh, how people could get pushed to this thing, but it's still such a weird concept. So like, instead of just going to get a day job and making things easier in reality, let me go give into this whole program in reality. This is much easier, and then this way I can just struggle.
Well, I just mean from Harry or I forget his character's name in this movie, right?
His character's name is
Jack.
Jack.
From Jack's,
That's a
I'm
very
just saying,
generic
like,
name.
if we're playing devil's advocate, looking at it from Jack's perspective, I don't see him as like necessarily like the bad guy as much as I see him as a man who is confused. Because it's like, it's not that, like, because in his mind it's she's too tired, but if she had the time, she would like enjoy it and she would love like having just freedom. But it's like, no, you don't understand, Jack. She is tired, but it's still her choice. It's her life. Like, she enjoys going to work. She enjoys like living the life that she's wanted. She's a doctor, like, and from the looks of it, a good one at that. Like, she loves
Almost
her
like
job. It's just she has to work a lot, so she doesn't have time for you all the time. That doesn't mean she hates her life, and, and that
means you hate her life.
gone. Right, you hate the fact that you have a girl. They never clarify if they are actually married in real life. They're married in the simulation, but I don't know. But if I'm just gonna say his girlfriend. You have a girlfriend that like works a lot. If you want to fix that, I don't know, maybe like just have a conversation. That's the only part of it where I'm like, you could just talk to her. You spent a lot of money to get this simulation done and all
Do
this
you
stuff.
also think it was like a test run?
Conversation.
Do you think it was also like a test run? Because I feel like they had a lot of glitches for the simulation. Do you think this was like their like beta run? Because there was like a lot of glitches in this.
I think it's more like
reality.
It relies on very stringent like rules. Because like the only way, because at first all it took was for her to break out that it broke the, I guess, the hypnosis or whatever she was under. And then the first time, then when they put her back in,
when you said like break the hypnosis, for me at least, your camera like glitched, and it was so weird, especially with what you were talking about. Like,
we're in a simulation right now.
I knew it.
Yeah,
sorry,
Chris already put you in it, Alex. So,
but you guys didn't make my life better.
Oh, it glitched again. Oh my gosh. That's so weird. Keep
Or
talking
maybe it's
anyway.
just Jerome in the simulation.
I don't know. Maybe. I'm in a current casual dating relationship, so I guess that's technically maybe.
That's so simulations.
But no, I just like I think I've honestly lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
Oh,
What was with the
well,
biplane? What was with the biplane crash?
I feel like
And where did the
that
plane go?
I feel
What was
like
the
that is
plane supposed to be?
maybe that was a glitch. Maybe from or maybe Margaret was oh well no, that is okay. I think that was Margaret messing with the simulation because remember when Florence Pugh finally remembers and then she keeps looking at the other wives and then they start to remember like she's breaking the system down because she killed Jack too, but she's like messing up the system because she's aware and she makes like all the other wives aware of what's going on. I think it's the same thing that when Margaret became aware of the simulation, then the
casually threw in and she killed Jack, but I don't. She kept making eye contact with everybody.
The bigger thing
she was helping
is that she was breaking people out the system, but also Jack died.
Making other women remember making eye contact. And she also killed Jack, but like eye contact.
But I think that the plane was because Margaret kept holding on to that plane of her son. I think that was her mind just like breaking the simulation down because she was still in the system.
That's true too. That she was still attached, and that was like a big symbol.
Because I
at
think
least for her son.
I think that's also how Florence Pugh, like, because when she sees her in the mirror and she like hits her head against the mirror, and then she immediately just knew she was like in trouble and ran over to her house to check on her. I think that's how she knew that is because it's like they're all connected together, so they can feel what each other feels. Depending, that's what I'm saying. This movie has more questions than answers. I'm just spitballing these ideas.
And then technically, Bunny did know. Bunny had lost her children, and so she decided to stay in the simulation to be with her children. So Bunny technically already knew. So there was already a major crack in the simulation.
Right.
Also, what were those vibrations that they kept feeling?
People bumping into their tanks.
Maybe that was people. Maybe it's just like, shoot.
Like, you can't drop shit around them. You know what happens. You can't have another earthquake in there.
I'm thinking maybe that's when people leave. Is it sends a tremor through the system?
That could be it. Yeah, you're not wrong. Where there was just a lot of like little things that just kept making you ask questions, and like also it is implied. It is implied that she does escape at the end. However, you are surrounded in that facility. Then it's kind of like when people talk about
she's
gravity
in the facility. She's at home. It's the thing you can bring at home. So she's just in her apartment.
That's right. Still, how's nobody monitoring them? It's just.
I mean, that's a good point.
It's also like bed sores, by the way. If you just leave them laying in bed, like
I wonder how she's especially since because homegirl Olivia Wilde said if somebody dies in the simulation, then they die in real life. So that means Harry Styles is just like laying dead next to her. So I'm sorry, dead. Jack. Yeah. So so how is she gonna get out? Because she's strapped to the thing.
I thought that same thing. I said the same thing. I was like, isn't she still strapped to the bed though? I mean, I don't think she can just get up. Like she's
like
attached.
at the end of Gravity when Sandra Bullock like gets out of orbit and finally lands on the planet. People were like, oh yeah, she survived. She crash landed back on Earth. I'm like, she crash landed in the middle of the fucking jungle. I'm like, a spider out
now
there. Now
she has a bigger problem.
She is like barely in any clothing. She's gonna get eaten by spiders, snakes. Something's gonna get her within a few seconds of stepping into any jungle area. She dead. It kind of has that same vibe of that, where she's like,
maybe they did look like they were in maybe New York. So maybe they have a big, busy apartment, so she could just scream and somebody will.
Oh yeah, but in New York, everybody ignores you.
And like, but they did show flashes of her like dancing in her apartment. It looked like, so I think she like does get herself free. But it's just the thing of like,
I'm finally free. Let me
mean,
just dance around.
That's what I mean by this movie. Just like it feels like the movie is just rushing to get to the ending, and it's like it's your movie. You have time. Just explain what's going on. Take the time.
It almost feels like this was almost kind of like this was a part of a larger film, and these were like actual scenes where like these were the moments, and instead of like letting the moments happen casually, they took out those flowy middle parts, those down parts that like that lead to one thing, and like tried to cram in all the major moments in like a short time.
It feels very Black Mirror episode-ish.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It feels like a Black Mirror episode where you're like,
But
oh.
the issue is though that with Black Mirror, it feels like it's a complete story, and I feel like this one isn't. I feel like it's like, I like as soon as the movie, because I remember when the movie ended and she like puts her hand on the glass and she's like free. I was like, okay, cool. Now what happens? And then it was like, oh, what happens is credits. What? Yeah. So here you go. Do. And I remember just thinking in my head, I'm like, okay, but there's so many questions. Even the way the movie leaves off of certain characters, it leads to ask questions. It's like Gemma Chan stabs Chris Pine, and then she's like, now it's my turn to run things. And you're like,
and we never see her again.
And you never see what that means. You're just like, run what? The company, the simulation, the system? Like, is there a whole organization behind
and not only that
like,
was
mysterious technology? Or
there's clearly a meaning to those words too. Was there a previous argument where she wanted to run things? Did she remember a past life where he took over something of hers? So it's like that, those, when she also said that, it had a deeper meaning that felt like this has been a previous discussion that we never got to see. You know what I mean? Like, oh,
Yeah.
I like he never said I run things. That statement was never made. So it's like, okay, it's your turn.
That's a good point. There was no conflict earlier, like, no, you're doing this all wrong, blah, blah, blah. There was no like conflict in that sense. So it came as a surprise when all of a sudden she pulls out a knife and stabs him. And it's like, whoa, where'd this come from? Like,
listen, we watched Don't Worry, Darling. Little did we know that in their house was Malcolm and Marie was playing the whole time.
If that's the case, then I'm fine with Chris Pine getting stabbed. Chris Pine getting stabbed. Malcolm deserved to get stabbed.
I love how almost like a year and 2 years later, we always find a way to bring up Malcolm and Marie.
I don't know, man. This movie, I feel like this movie was very like it for as good as it looks too, because it's like this movie had a serious budget. I mean, just to have like just the 1950s stuff with the sets and the cars, everything, it looks like it was really immaculately put together. But it just, the problem is that it's a lot of flash without substance in a lot of parts of it. And it's like, while Florence Pugh and even Olivia Wilde, they're doing great performances, it doesn't add up to anything in the end. And I think it's because it's a sci-fi story. I feel like if this was just a strictly like about a woman like losing her mind because all the men have done something crazy, we would just be like, we would be a lot more willing to just accept it, because it's like, okay, the men clearly have just like messed with this woman, and it could be something, because I was expecting it to be something simple, like she saw what she saw in the facility was another version of herself, that like all the wives have been like cloned or something, and they're not real, like
cloned
not real
until they get it right. Yeah,
right. I thought that's what it was going to be, because I was like, okay, that would make sense why they have these weird psychological breaks, and then like, but it's never real, because I'm like, there's some really cool stuff, like when the glass presses up against her and whatever. I'm like, that's a really cool shot and a cool idea. Same thing with the backwards pool where she's like, the bubbles are coming into her mouth instead of leaving, because the shot's in reverse.
it would have also made sense if that was like, it was like a testing facility, because what you're saying, I kind of forgot the bubble part, but I in the moment I remember thinking, I'm like, that's really interesting the way that happened. Thinking, I'm like, oh, it's almost like if they're testing her. Right. So it would have been interesting if she had gone and they found it's like a testing facility.
Mm-hmm. And so it's like, especially, and also it would make sense for Chris Pine's dialogue with her, where he's like, I've been waiting for someone like you to test me. and they're not going to believe you. And I'm like, okay, that's a little ominous. So what's your deal? Like what? It's like, are you in control of the facility that makes these women or something like that, or brainwashes them, whatever? And we don't get any answers to any of those questions. After the movie was over, I was like, why the hell was that dialogue there? He doesn't know this person. Not really.
It's okay. I was fine with that dialogue being there.
You want to be threatened by Chris Pine? Now we're just
I
getting
wouldn't.
into some
I wouldn't find. I wouldn't find that. I wouldn't find that threatening. Trust me. Point is, that scene was fine to have in there. Don't talk about that scene. Anyway, I get what you're saying. I saw it as more like this was definitely going to be what Stepford Wives remake should have been, because what the Nicole Kidman remake was stupid because it's like, oh, they're partially robots, but it's just a chip in the brain. But they were able to act like ATM, so money came out of their mouth, was like weird because like, where is that money now stored? What is going on? These are still human women. You just put a chip in their brain to make them compliant. This felt more like a modern day Stepford wife feeling going on because the simulation is such a big topic in today's, internet culture world, whatever you want to say it, because we're all like, oh, we're in a simulation, blah 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 blah, and this would totally be the way the Stepford Wives would have been. So I wasn't too shocked to be like, oh yeah, this is just what it is now. It gave me heavy 80s vibe with the like when she touches it was called Victory Headquarters, right?
Yeah.
Victory Headquarters, like the headquarters area, when she touches it and it's got like the wavy thing, and it's just like, this is very 80s. You walk through the glassy wall and it vibrates and suddenly you're in your own little world again. And it was just like, and out in the desert too, in the middle, there's nowhere else you could better protect this facility. Nowhere else, maybe underground, in an actual building.
I think
maybe put
minds,
like an actual wall over it.
I think in their minds it was like, the women ain't gonna revolt, so what's the matter? It's male hubris.
Even though they have already come from a reality where they do. Let's ignore all of that and be like, let's leave this seriously sensitive materials out and exposed.
In that world, we're not in charge, but in this world, we are in charge. And
so you leave your most protected thing out in the middle with no security or anything.
You've seen Jackass. You've seen what male brains look like on with unchecked women, like female perspective.
Like that is fair. I have observed average male behavior, and yeah. All right, I stand corrected. No, all right, I retract my statement.
It's just you know what too. The thing is that like that every time she stopped on her on that final journey to get to the freaking thing, it kept pissing me off. But she stopped to look at them climbing the mountain. I was like, girl, do you
Run.
not like there's an army of men coming for you? Just go. Don't even look back. This is what the black girl took the weird way out. She killed herself, but at least she made moves. Go to get to the destination. For God's sake.
She did. She kept turning back and looking at things.
Mm-hmm. And then she was running up the path rather than running up the rocks, which I guess was the safer option, but still, it was the longer option.
Can we also give a RIP to Margaret? Because everybody know because at first I was like, okay, it's a 1950s black woman, sure. In her mind, this is the way out. But then once you find out the twist, I'm like, okay, no modern black woman would choose that over just freeing herself. If you could just drive over there and get out the headquarters, because she's seen it. Just get out the way. Every black person knows that. We are very frightened people. Okay, if something ain't right, we leave.
It felt though
we ain't staying here no more.
It felt though like she did have some. Even in the simulation, it felt that she had some PTSD, some
she knew something wasn't right. Yeah,
she had seen some stuff, and it affected her mental health greatly.
Do you think they had to rewrite the 1950s history when they brainwash these women, because like you're right, as a black woman, she would have known what the real 1950s were like, and they would not have been like that for her. So do you think they had to have their own version of like US American history, take out a lot of the racism, so they could just have this like the one singular black couple there?
I mean, there were a couple other black people. They were just in the background. But
I noticed two of them and that was it. There was
but
more than two.
it's just, yeah, I guess it's just the idea of like maybe they do make their own like interesting history.
Because that was like a whole nother thing. Another thing I noticed when it's like movies like this where they're like brainwashing people to think, oh, it's, you know, it's the good old days and blah blah blah, is like, do you have to like scrub out all history from it, all US history? I like to say there was no Latin people stuck in that simulation. We're faster.
I feel like there were I think they're just in the background.
No, dude, they got like black people and that's enough for their diversity team.
That's not
Gemma
true. They got
Chan.
Gemma Chan. She's Asian.
Oh, you're right. I forgot the one Asian woman in the entire film. They get an A plus for then. An A plus for diversity. Again, 1950s and an Asian woman. They're trapping in. They definitely got to take out so
I'll
much.
give you.
Then.
I'm looking at the cast list now. Dude named Asif Ali played Peter. Pretty sure he's not white. He's in there.
I don't know. I've seen white people give their kids some weird ass names nowadays.
He's a brown man.
Like
he's a very brown,
he's a brown man.
Yeah, he is very clearly.
But no Latin people. We ain't getting stuck in that.
I don't know this guy Ariel Stachel. He was born in Berkeley, but I don't know. He's a little brown skinned too. I don't know if he's I don't know if he counts.
Ariel Stachel. That is not a Latin name, sir. Still no Latin people.
I forgot what I was going to say now.
Just was. It could have been more.
Absolutely.
It could have absolutely been more than what it was. And like the concept is not bad because it is a terrifying thought, especially as a woman, you know, with everything going on, having your autonomy taken away like that, having it so that you are stuck in this warped reality at the pleasure and desire of somebody else is horrifying. And just the knowledge of doing that to anybody it's crazy. And the thought of like people, if they had the opportunity to actually do something like this, how would they actually do it? Makes you also question, like, would they do it? And like it's mind-boggling to be as like absolutely not. But so the concept is a good idea, and I think the movie had potential. And Florence Pugh really did, with all the controversy, with all the issues, everything that went on never affected her acting ability. This woman is a strong actress. She gave what she had. She clearly showed it on screen. Other actors, you can tell, I didn't want to be here, or I did not like this other actor, and there was a tension. And even in these really good scenes, she never presented that. She was a professional all the way. So I will say that above all with Florence Pugh in this movie is that she's an absolute professional, and like I have so much respect to her. And you know, I hopefully will continue to see her, you know, go up further and her star rise, because she really does deserve it. She really does hold her own.
I mean, she's making Marvel money now. All right, she got Marvel movies to do.
But that's the thing is, she's making Marvel money, but she's still acting, you know, more professional. She's not like, I'm in Marvel, I don't have to do shit no more. She's doing quality stuff.
Side note: there's a person in the cast named Natalie Santiago.
How far did you have to go down to find her? Though?
There's also someone in the cast named Marcelo Reyes.
How far did you have to go down?
Because that's not a main character, all right. Yeah, like what do they cast?
Neither is
was they woman number two?
Ali.
I'm sorry. So
Asif Ali at least has speaking lines. He's Peter.
Natalia is a ball gown model.
Marcelo Reyes. His name is Fred. He has a name.
So the one Latin person is a ball gown model, and the Latin man is Fred. They were making sure you knew he had no Latin or Hispanic in that man. Fred. I'll give you props for trying, but like it's the ball gown model person. Like they were not in that film. For you're even a background character. You saw her like the edge of the dress. I remember those in that scene because it had like a little, it had like a little show.
Also, that was confusing to me. Where I was like, "Yeah, we got like Gemma Chan's like we have a presentation for you," and it's like this striptease, and I was like, "Okay, do you expect this to be entertaining for all the wives in the room, of which every man has one in this world?" I don't understand. What type of party is this?
All the parties were weird. But then again, swingers were on the rise up in the 60s.
That's true. But they don't imply that these people have sex with each other, except their significant other.
I mean, also, Kiki Lane, we talked about Margaret earlier. I know what I was going to say earlier. Kiki Lane, shout out to her. She was she did her thing, I guess, in this. But
I'm about to say, you act like great. She like had a big role in this movie. She was much.
She was great in If Beale Street Could Talk, and I have to shout her out for
that. I think I've only seen her in a few stuff. I don't know much of like her acting, but from what I've seen her in, she's always been like a very good actress. So I think they did waste her having her, and having this character also be like the first marker of like something's not right. They could have given her more, or they could have like had it so like Margaret was able to be like, hey, look at this stuff and notice things. It was just Margaret's acting crazy. I'm getting uncomfortable.
Apparently, she replaced Dakota Johnson. Dakota Johnson originally was supposed to play that role, but she had see Dakota
Johnson playing that role because she would just be it'd be Suspiria too. She's already done it before.
Like Dakota Johnson, like respectfully, has kind of crazy eyes. No.
You can say that respectfully.
It's not always. It's this like some people can do this like stare, this crazy stare.
I mean, that's how I feel about Tilda Swinton.
Yeah, they have this like crazy. They can do this crazy stare where they don't. It looks like you haven't blunked for hours, and like she has that. I don't.
So, did you just invent the word blunk?
It's just blunk. It's past tense. Blunk. You never heard of the word blunk? Tense. I think blunk. Hold on, blunk.
I was just gonna move past it.
Actually, blunk is a word. However, it does mean ruin or mismanage or spoil. So the word does exist. However, I did use the improper term for it. I feel like blunk is like a past tense for blink now.
I mean, it sounds right, but it sounds not. Right.
She ruined her eyesight she blunked her eyesight by not blinking. That is technically a proper sentence.
That's fair. I'll give you that.
Well, it is.
And
I think they just wasted Kiki Lane for no reason, and they also didn't give her enough to be like, hey, you're the first, like I said, you're the first marker of like the simulation breakdown, and they just had her uncomfortably stand places until she killed herself.
You know what it is? I think this movie, pacing wise and story wise, it would have been better because I know Florence Pugh's the main character. It would have been better if she was the main character, but we also get to see what's going on in other people's households, like the conversations they have, because it's different dynamics. You've got Margaret, especially if from the top of the film, because you got Florence Pugh who doesn't know what's going on yet. She's just having this loving relationship with her husband. Margaret, who's the one who does know what's going on. You could do more with her if we could actually see what's happening in her household, what's happening with Chris Pine and Gemma Chan, and then also what's happening with Bunny and her husband, because they seem to know, they completely know what's going on. What are those conversations like? Because they're not, there's no fabrication for them. Both of them are very aware of what's happening.
Yeah, I agree, because it seems like in this movie you have Florence Pugh and then Harry Styles, and then everybody else is kind of like background characters. It's an ensemble cast. You have all these people who we know, but they're not really utilized that much. They're more utilized to push the Alice and Jack storyline further rather than getting to know how and why they're in this community. So yeah,
It
that could have been effective
it
to
also
hear
would
more of
have
the other people's stories.
been a great way to help break the simulation as well, because she automatically just falls into this kind of descent. But it would have been helpful if you heard like the other women having conversation being like, oh, I had this weird moment, and then like kind of laugh it off, and her being like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right, and her even seeing it in her home that it's because with the story, what she tried to do with the story of like, oh, where'd you meet your husband? Oh, on a train in Boston. Funny, I met mine on a train in Boston. That was a good indication. That was a good way to have it that like there's a link right there and a breakdown in the simulation of
Mhm.
these implanted memories. If she had had that, it heard it either eavesdropping or other women brought it up in other conversations, being like, "Oh yeah, isn't that funny?" Where it's like those coincidences that people ignore all the time could have helped her be like, "Well, that's too much of a coincidence." After I heard this coincidence. I
Mhm.
think they did not utilize the cast they could have to help, because it was only her own like mental breakdown, even though she could see it in everybody else, but nobody else was like, you're right. They weren't using the cast that they have for some reason. They were trying really focusing it on the main two, but the main two, it just all accelerated so quickly out of nowhere. And it felt
Yeah.
like there wasn't a lead up to it other than Margaret having these issues.
Well, especially because you don't know what she saw for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Like you don't know what her, so you just feel like she's just having these weird mental breakdowns without any explanation. Because even if it wouldn't, even if you didn't necessarily see like the modern world and know for a fact she's in a simulation, at least show us something that gives us an indication that it's weird, like something's wrong. Instead, they're just like, here's some demon ballerinas. Yeah. And you're like, okay,
Oh,
but
also,
why?
actually, I just thought about this too, because we had talked about it, about her waking up and her just going to be in her own bed and nobody else around besides a dead Harry Styles. Harry Styles' character didn't know, because she technically already escaped it once she went to the desert, and it was implied that she almost escaped the simulation. That's how she got glimpses of her old life. That means she already escaped once, so there was somebody there to put her back, or somehow they pulled her back in. So could they have just done that again when she escaped again? That
Well,
means
they did
somebody
do it,
had to be around. Somebody had to be
or
around.
maybe they did. I don't know, because like it was right after that she wakes up in the bed and Harry is just like, "Yeah, I found you here sleeping." So
Right, but
I
then it
think
was
he
implied at the
knew.
dinner. No, it was implied at the dinner party that he wasn't aware that she went into the desert, because in Chris Pine's character, uh, Frank was like, "Oh, she went over to the headquarters area, right?" And Harry's character is like, "What? What do you mean she went? What?"
Well,
There was like a breakdown.
I think maybe it's implied that maybe she didn't fully wake up. Like, so maybe he was aware, but he's just like, oh, well, she's kind of, because he was at work at that time, so he would have been awake. So he probably would have saw her like wake up a little bit and was like, oh, she's waking up. Yeah, all right, just hit the reset button. Okay, there we go.
So
All good.
put the reset button on your spouse. Um, I don't know. It is implied that she left for a minute, but now there's also this implication that it's just them in their house, but also bed sores. I just kept thinking about that too. I don't know. My mind went to I do work in medical
Yeah.
people, so that's why my brain sometimes go to like things that are gross like that. But that's just not what I'm thinking about, because it was implied through that dinner scene when she's trying to help almost get these stories out of other women, or kind of make them say like, hey, something's not right. And Chris Pine's character gaslights her about this and be like, hey, you're just crazy and you broke the main rule, and then everybody's upset with her for breaking the main rule. And it's like, well, that means somebody had to pull you back, or the simulation had to reset and pull you back. And there's also got to be like, I might just be thinking more into it than what it is already, because this movie did not offer enough explanation. Because is this a team? Is this just a group of men? is this like an actual company or is this just a group of men who like
Now that's a
bonded together
question
and like let's
I did
create this
have
community? Yeah.
too. Of like, I had the same
Because
question.
yeah, with the Stepford wife, it was a couple that started this nonsense. With this, it doesn't show whether this was a company or was this just like these 20 group of men that were like, hey, let's just do this. Um, so again, this movie could have been more, but it wasn't. And then now it's just kind of feels like another generic film of a psychological thriller of getting your autonomy taken away and don't trust Ben.
Do you want
I
to?
mean, well, don't trust anybody because I think Gemma Chan too. I think she was also involved. To what extent, don't know, because the movie doesn't exactly elaborate on that. But I feel like Gemma Chan's character anyway, whose name I can't remember. I can't remember anyone's character's name. That's what I mean. Like none of the characters were that memorable in this movie.
They were the most
Shelley.
generic names.
I feel like she
No.
never said that. I feel like she never said that name in the whole movie. Shelley. This is my first
I
time
think they
hearing that
did,
name.
but I don't think they like. It's not. It doesn't stand out because you don't even know who this woman is. She's only the like dance instructor and the wife of Chris Pine. That's it. That's all you get. You don't get much else outside of that in this whole movie with her character.
That's like a lot of these characters are very generic. There was no substance to them until the very, very end. They were like, oh, there's more. She kills him for a reason and saying, it's my turn now. It's like, okay, there's a story there. That significant phrase you used, as I said earlier, had meaning. What did it mean? Why are you saying that to him in the most dramatic way? Why?
You know what this feels like actually? This feels like The Purge. The first movie of The Purge. And what I mean by that is when The Purge came out, it was a really interesting idea of like, what if crime was legal for like 12 hours in one night of the year, and America was just essentially allowed to cut loose for a whole night for 12 hours. And then they made the movie where the whole movie takes place in this one house with this one family, not out on the streets where all the interesting stuff would be happening. And so you're sitting there like, this is boring. Like, where you took this
Actually,
really
like
interesting
the first
premise.
Purge movie.
Come on.
Isn't that the one that everybody likes though? Like,
no,
you can't say my favorite one is The Purge forever or whatever.
Everyone likes the second one or the third one because then that
Who's
was
everyone?
Like,
Tell me.
I like the second one better because the second one involves you being on the streets and actually being
right,
like
you're
what
on
it would
the
be like.
streets. You get to see what's going
Are
on
you
in America.
Those
let me look up.
No, hold on. Those
let
kids
me.
Purge,
the proof is in the pudding.
I would have kicked their ass out on the street. That daughter especially annoyed the fuck out of me. And that boy, like none of them could listen. Stay where we can see you. Stay where you can see you. Giant ass house. These kids are running around. How hard is it to confine your children to one room for 12 hours?
Very hard when they're white.
And a safe house and like a safe room. You guys are aware of this. You have the money, but y'all can't create a safe room. You can't like get that like a panic room or some shit. Apparently white kids need to get.
My point is that this movie is like,
first of all, really all of the ratings on all of the Purge movies are trash. So
I mean, they were kind of trash movies too.
They're trashy movies. I'm not saying they're
because
high
a lot of times people would also be like,
they've spawned, this franchise that has.
So is Transformers. It doesn't mean the movies are good.
But I don't agree. I don't agree with the comparison for this movie because the Purge, it was like a self-contained, it was one of those movies where it was a Malcolm and Marie. I feel like it'd be more comparable to Malcolm and Marie.
Damn, Malcolm and Marie, it won't let us go.
Where it takes place in one location. You're focusing on just these people. Whereas Don't Worry, Darling, you're focusing on a lot of people, but the main focus is on these two people.
That's not what I mean. What I mean is that in that first Purge movie, it has a really good premise, but it doesn't utilize it to its full potential because the movie is trying to just be like to simplify it in a way where it does a disservice to that really cool premise. Because I feel like there's a lot you could do with this idea of, if there's a group of men out there that are like trying to make their significant other subservient, or even women make their significant, like maybe there's a, like, because I'm like, there's so much potential. Maybe you could do like, like a Jack who's like, I want to be a man, I want to be more of a man in my relationship, this is my way to do it. But maybe you could have something fun, like there's a woman who's like, my husband sucks and I want him to be a man. And so she puts him in this simulation. Or like Bunny, where her kids are gone, but she's like, in this, I can have my kids back and I can have the paradise life I want. There's so many different angles you could use this premise for, and they don't do any of them. Except for
See, I get what you're
story.
saying, and I kind of get what Jonathan was saying. I think this movie wanted to be a little bit more like Malcolm Marie, where it's focused on the main couple and you're focused in their home, because that's where a lot of delusion happens, where the simulation's finally cracking. It's in their home, and that's like their safe haven too. Um, and I get what you're saying, because her breakdown was caused by the influences of the others, and is where the issue lies, really, because it'd be more understandable to have such more focus and kind of zone out away from everybody if this was just her breaking down the simulation. It was just her noticing the cracks, and it was just her finally realizing everything. But no, it is influenced by the people around her so much more, by how Margaret, acts, how Bunny gets angry and tells her, you're just like another Margaret, you're gonna destroy everything. It's these influences of the other character that's causing her to realize the reality is not what she thinks it is. And I think this movie tries to make you focus on Florence Pugh's character solely, but then you also have given such interesting backstories to these other characters. It's like, I want to know them now too. Like Bunny's character staying for her 3 kids, that means that the relationship presented is, really is a facade created by everyone just for her and her kids. But then it's like, okay, then is her husband then wanting to really stay in this reality? Does he want to stay in this reality? Because she gets to have what she wants, but he still has to go back into the real world, do everything. But she gets to, play happy family with her children. And she probably doesn't want to, talk to him or interact with him, knowing what he's done when he does come back to this world. So that puts in a whole nother position what's going on over there. And then you can clearly, it is implied at the end, there is a power struggle between Chris Pine's character and Gemma Chan's character, where you can see like maybe they were in this together. And then when he put her under this different simulation, it's like that's why she wants that vengeance, and that's why she's standing over him like, oh, it's gonna be my turn now. Well, you must have cheated her out of wasteland. So I think they gave 2 interesting backstories to these characters, and they made us want to know more. And then when they didn't give us more, we're all like, well, the hell. You left us wanting more for these characters and not even the main characters, which kind of screwed up when we were needing to focus solely on the main character and her break of reality and going to find, her escape and everything like that. I feel like that's what happened in this film. And that's also why it feels like we didn't get enough of the story. Because if you just solely focus on her character, technically you did see everything she saw and you did get the breakdown as she got it down.
Well, there definitely was a lot to discuss with this film.
Don't Worry Darling 2 is not coming anytime soon, I don't think.
We've established this. It's the Don't Worry Darling.
The Don't Worry Darling.
That's what it'll be called. Is
the
Don't Worry Darling.
The Don't Worry
Darling.
Jerome, what did you think? Well, we know what you thought, but final thoughts and rating.
I think this movie had a lot of potential. I think, and I don't think this movie's awful. Despite my complaints, I still think the movie is pretty decent. Like, it's all right. It's definitely an interesting psychological thriller. It's just the fact of like, it provides a lot of interesting questions. It just doesn't provide a lot of satisfactory answers to those questions. And so if that's the type of thing that would bother you going into a movie like this, you probably would not enjoy this film because it would just feel like you're jumping into something that it's like the equivalent of like if you ordered a really delicious dish or food that you were really looking forward to and then never got it. You you would just be pissed the entire rest of the night because it's like I had my mouth fixed. I was ready for this delicious meal, and now you're telling me there is no delicious meal, and not only that, there never was one. So that's how it feels by the end of this movie. But despite that, I think the cinematography is to be adored. The acting, especially from Florence Pugh more specifically, is definitely to be appreciated. She does a great job, and that can't be downplayed because I think it's important to mention that. Um, and everybody else, even if they're not like they don't stand out, they do a serviceable enough job to keep you invested in the movie as you're watching it, especially if you're watching it for the first time, to keep you like engaged. It's just that's I feel like that script, if we had went a few more passes with it, maybe it could have been shined that much more and matched with like how good this movie looks aesthetically. As far as a grade goes, I think I would give it. Let me give it a C plus. I think it is like a fine movie. It's just not anything like really great, which is kind of sad to say because I think it has the potential to be that, but who knows?
Alex.
This movie was okay. Like you said, there was it had a chance to be more. That's what I keep saying. It had a chance to be more. The concept was really good, and visually, it was very pretty. Uh, the symmetry of the landscape and the symmetry of the houses and everything was so pretty. I loved it. It made my little OCD brain very happy. Um, and I will continue to praise Florence Pugh's acting skills, acting abilities on this film. If anything, was just amazing. She did really present the character so well and did it justice. I think they should have tried a little more with the surrounding characters. They could have told a better story and they could have had the breakdown of reality, the flow of it a little easier than just kind of like just sudden points. Because when it's like cracking an egg. Once you crack it, there's like little cracks everywhere, not just these big pinpoints. Um,
Although they couldn't crack any eggs in this movie, there was no yolk.
I mean, technically, they cracked the shell.
They did. They did.
It crumbled. Get it?
Nothing came
No,
out.
it crumbled.
Which I was just like, okay, someone's messing up in the computer system. The server must have been messing up that day because they were like, "Where the hell is the yolk? I need to eat."
There are a lot of things. Who was their IT guy? Because they need to be replaced. You shouldn't be messing up the eggs. I mean, I get it, like other stuff.
They needed an IT woman, but unfortunately, she was also in the simulation, so
maybe. Men tend to miss details. Technically, Chris Pine, love him, beautiful man. His character, you're right. There was points where it's like he seemed like he wanted to be challenged in this. Like I thought they were gonna have it as a much darker character, but his character didn't even seem as dark as it was going to be presented originally. Still bad guy, still the main, technically main bad guy, but like it's fine. He's gonna be in the D&D movie coming out, which I'm super excited for too. But this movie I think holds as a C. It's not like a bad movie. It's not really a good movie. I think honestly the most interesting part of this movie was the controversy and rumors and all that crap surrounding it. That's what people are. It's pretty bad when that's what people are talking about.
Is gonna get this movie a lot of the bucks. Like people are gonna go see this movie just to see like what all the hype is about and if the controversy was worth it.
Yeah, and they can see through the other actors, not Florence Pugh. She did everything she was supposed to be doing on this film, but you can clearly see with every other actor, even my love Chris Pine, that there was tension and it bled into the movie. And with these final cut scenes, you can tell like something was not right on set. So I think this movie.
I mean, it is projected to be the #1 movie. of
All
the week.
movies are
So.
projected to be the number one movies. How many what movie is not the number one movie? Honestly,
it's just true. Every trailer is in this movie now the Don't Worry Darling, the number one movie this summer.
It's said to be the number one movie, or the must see movie of the year, when it's like 2 more months until like December. Not much of the year left. But okay, sure. So I think it holds it's definitely a C quality film. It's a C quality film. What about you, Jonathan?
I would agree. I'm gonna give this a C, middle of the road. It didn't offend me hugely, and I wasn't greatly impressed. Especially going into it, I think I had more of a high expectation for a movie of this genre and with this concept. I think maybe seeing Barbarian, which is a better movie in my opinion, right before it, definitely affected my viewing experience as well. And just seeing two movies back to back, I was kind of like, okay, yeah, when is this gonna end?
Yeah, I'm tired. I'm tired.
Right. So that definitely affected it. But there were a lot of questions I feel like that weren't answered. And I usually hesitate to say that kind of thing because sometimes movies are meant to have you questioning things at the end of it. But
yeah,
but like with this, I feel like there were so many things that they could have answered for us that didn't need to be questions. And at a certain point, you have too many questions. So
well,
yeah,
there's leaving the movie vague, and then there's leaving the movie too vague.
Right.
Well, yeah, like the ending where she just wakes up and you don't know if she's gotten out of bed or if there's somebody there to throw her back or what. That's a good question to have. It makes you wonder, like, is this really the ending? Is this really a happy ending or not? I think that's a good question to have after a film, a psychological film, because it's like, yeah, the torment you have watched is over, but is the torment actually over? I think that. But yeah, you're right. It left too many other questions that were like that could have simply been answered.
Yeah. Yeah. But shout out to the art director, like the set and the scenery and the art looked amazing. It gave you that picture perfect 1950s white picket fence aesthetic, which I thought was what they were trying to get across in the movie. Cinematography was great, and like you guys also mentioned, Florence Pugh, she did a great job. I'm also curious to see because the only other thing that I've seen Harry Styles act in was Dunkirk, and he didn't have a huge role in that. And then this, he was a lead role, but he was kind of supporting, kind of a lead role. I'm curious to see what he does in a lead role, which I know is coming up soon, My Policeman. So I'm curious to see how he does in that.
Playing a policeman, that'll get people to like him.
Technically, he's going to be in Marvel movies. Technically, he's in the Eternals.
Oh, that's true.
I mean, that's not coming out anytime soon, but
I'm pretty sure he plays a gay policeman. I don't know if you've heard the concept of of that movie, Alex.
That doesn't make it better.
Okay.
Yeah. Although, if you want to experience what Florence Pugh experienced in this movie, watch Moon Age Daydream, because I watched that too, the most recent David Bowie documentary, and that movie is all over the place. Rightfully so, because I think they're trying to capture like what it is to be in David Bowie's world, how eclectic he was, as a person who just loved pop culture and loved things in life, and loved art. But it's just the fact of like when you're watching it, you're just like, I need my brain needs to take like 5 seconds
There's so much going on. Yeah.
Thanks, said though. It is all right movie.
Mm-hmm. Perfectly fine. No.
Just a call. Yeah, it's fine.
Alex, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me at Alex and Nobody on Instagram and on TikTok. As well on TikTok, you can find the First Ones to Die podcast TikTok, where I post little clips of these podcasts as well as random little things we do and just things that I do when I am bored at work. What about you, Jerome? Where are we finding you?
You can find me at Jerome Rhett on Instagram, as well as at RoboZoo Media and at Jerome_the_show to see all the other things I'm working on. And also, if you want more like extra content that you can't get on the audio streaming platforms of the podcast, check out our YouTube channel at The First Ones to Die. You can see all of our extra stuff, including gaming content, vlogs, mini reviews, book reviews, all types of stuff is over there for you to check out. And be on the lookout for when we post when we're doing our next Twitch stream. That's right, we've been streaming video games now. Me and Alex are currently playing Stray.
It gets so sad. I killed a cat so many times.
I don't know. If you want to know what Alex is talking about, you gotta have to tune in live. Until then, Stray, like pieces of our Stray playthroughs will be making their ways to YouTube soon. But until then, the only way to be there live and in person is to tune on in on Twitch and check out our streams when they happen live. So be on the lookout on social media when we post the postings, when those will happen. And yeah, Jonathan.
Yes, you can find me at Jonathan Keys on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you please. You can follow us, The First Ones to Die at gmail.com. You can follow us at The First Ones to Die.
Follow our email. I don't know how you'll do it, but you'll find a way.
Ain't that how the kids do nowadays? Follow us on email. You can follow us at The First Ones to Die. You can email us at thefirstones to die@gmail.com. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and give us a like and subscribe. Also, let us know if you watched this movie. What did you think about it? You're listening to us via your favorite podcast streaming platform. Go ahead and give us 5 stars and leave us a review as well. That would help us out a bunch. I'm gonna mention next week.
No, we do.
Already know the.
No, we do. We do.
Wait, what?
Hocus Pocus 2 comes out September 30th.
Okay.
We actually have a movie for the start of October.
We hadn't discussed this at all, so it's live and in person.
Well, maybe.
Say you just made that dictation. You just
no,
made that decision for the podcast.
Maybe, I don't know. If y'all look at the calendar.
You just added this 2 minutes ago.
Comes out. You didn't say that we were doing it. All right.
Why wouldn't we do Hocus Pocus 2?
Welcome to what it is to be a part of the First Ones to Die.
Yeah, you put stuff on the calendar and nobody looks at it. That's what it's like to be on this podcast.
That just means the movie's coming out. We were supposed to do Lord of the Rings too. We didn't do that either.
Oh, Jonathan doesn't like fantasy. We weren't going to do Lord of the Rings with him. I'm not going to make him watch all that. That's a bunch of lore. Bored out of his mind.
2 episodes.
When we were gonna get exactly what we got Arcane, I couldn't do it. And it's fair. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.